Next guest appeared on Question Time in January of this year. What a different time of the world, this country and indeed the world was. And as a result, some saw him as a hero, some saw him as a villain, but undoubtedly it was one of the most controversial appearances the show has had or enjoyed for many months. Subsequently, Laurence Fox, the actor, has decided to set up his own party. He joins me now, and I note that a couple of weeks ago, Mr. Fox, good morning to you, you wrote the party will be called, this is in the London Evening Standard, the party will be called Reclaim, will aim to take back British values from politicians who've lost touch with the people. What are those British values? Good morning.
Morning, Nick. How are you doing?
Not bad, sir. What are the British values?
The British values, I think, are the things you learn around a dinner table when you're a child. You know, robust argument, the ability to disagree and remain friends, politeness, fairness, these sorts of things.
Where have they gone then? You think that's gone from the British life?
Well, I mean, I feel that people are fundamentally really kind of scared to speak at the moment for fear of the repercussions of what will happen if they say, you know, the wrong thing. And, for fear of being cancelled, essentially.
Point to examples of that, if you would, Laurence.
Well, myself, that lovely welder in Burnley. There are hundreds, aren't there, downstream of me.
That was the welding. Is that the one who talked about the problems with COVID and how he just wanted it all to be so simple, and he was offering to do work for elderly people? That's the person you talked about?
No, he was the one who did the White Lives Matter.
Oh, right.
Over
Okay.
the stadium.
Okay. Well, as you mentioned, White Lives Matter. Why do you have a problem with Sainsbury's marking Black History Month?
I don't at all have a problem with Sainsbury's marking Black History Month. I mean, I think it probably would be interesting if there was also Jewish History Month and Muslim History Month. But no, what my issue with Sainsbury's was that they were saying we're creating safe spaces for their black employees. And it doesn't take too much sort of mental gymnastics to think that might be sort of promoting segregation in a way. And seeing as this country is tolerant and becoming even more tolerant, I'm not sure why we need to suddenly smuggle in safe spaces when it assumes that, you may not be safe around white people.
But I don't know and you don't. Neither of us are black. We don't know what it's like, do we? Being black and working in Sainsbury's or Asda or Waitrose or anywhere else, do we?
No. We don't. We only know all we can go on is the polling on these things.
So if those folk feel they need a safe space to talk about issues, is it wrong for a supermarket, therefore, to facilitate that?
As I say, I just think that safe spaces are essentially kind of promoting segregation, and I think it's backwards, and we want to look forwards, not backwards. We've got great news in terms of the non-existent ethnic pay gap, which actually they said this morning in the Telegraph is gone the other way. So
that's for younger people. You're right, but that's for younger people, of course.
Yeah.
At the other end of the age scale, we need to make the point that sadly it still is existent. But you're absolutely right as regards
it's progress.
Absolutely, and we celebrate that.
Yeah.
Seeing statues toppled into Bristol Harbour, is that progress? What goes through your heart when you see that?
Fury. Actually, real deep sadness. We need to educate people about this stuff. You can't just pull a statue down because that's what you fancy doing. It needs to be a democratic process. But actually, what I would be in favour of is sticking a plaque on that statue and explaining who Herbert Colston was, rather than just saying, right, we're going to obliterate history. It's quite Orwellian, isn't it, I suppose?
And also now in the focus is Nelson, of course. The Greenwich Maritime Museum is reviewing what they think could be, they don't say they are, could be links with slavery. Ultimately, that might lead to, do we need a plaque at Nelson's column?
Well, maybe they could put it up the top, so it's hard to read.
Your political party, it's not cheap setting up a political party, Mr. Fox. How much money you got in the bank? Not you personally, the party.
5 million quid.
Where'd that come from?
Jeremy Hosking.
And what does he see in it? Why is he supporting it to that level?
Well, he, I think, like many others, feel that, this sort of odd phrase that we use a lot called the silent majority, who only really get to have their voices heard at elections, are not being heard. And he is interested that, as I am, passionately interested about protecting our culture and the values that make this nation and this union great.
And how is our culture under threat?
As I said, I think to you before, the cancellation of people who are not... Well, freedom of speech, it's one of the most important things in the world to move forward with, and freedom of speech is under threat. As you said, Nelson, they want to take away his hero status.
Well, they want to review
navel gazing.
Yeah.
And Britain hating. And I just think it would be also good to, as we teach history and as we look through this stuff, to focus on some of the great positives. Certainly in regards to things like slavery, we need to talk about Wilberforce as well, and Britain's role in ending the slave trade.
But we do acknowledge that, sadly, a lot of people made a lot of money out of that as well, don't we?
Yes, but it's also not our job to tick off history, is it? The present, to tell off the past. The past is the past. We're looking to progress, move forward, and the only way that one can do that, really, is with a reasoned, honest conversation. And though these that wish to silence dissent or any opposing view by smearing everyone as a racist who doesn't agree with them, it didn't work with Brexit, and I don't think it's working at the moment.
But
People are tired of it.
To those who say you only really understand the present if you appreciate and understand the past, surely they're right, aren't they?
I think it's absolutely brilliant to understand the past, which is why I think it would be really good if kids studied English and British and European history right the way up to GCSE, so at least they knew what the past was and they were well informed in it, so that they didn't have to just come through with the revisionist history that we seem to be given now.